Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another wine edition of the E-commerce Revolution podcast. We are back with episode 35. Took a little time off, rejuvenated, saw the world, and now we're back to talk some more wine. You can always find this episode when we're done with it. Obviously, when we're done with it, that's when you're going to be seeing it, as well as all of our past episodes on LinkedIn. They'll be on Facebook. They're on Twitter. They're on YouTube, and as well as on our site, skuagency.com/podcast. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Ramin. I am the host, and I'm also one of the managing partners here at SKU Agency, and it is great to have you here. So let's get this thing started. All right. I am really, really excited about today's episode. And I don't think I always say that. I mean, I love all of our episodes. I love interviewing everybody that we talk to, but I'm really excited about today's episode. I first came across today's guest while scanning my email newsletter from Wine Industry Network, also known as WIN for those of you in the wine industry. Back in April, I believe. And he had an article. Our guest had this great article. It's titled Adapting Incentives for a New Wine Generation. That immediately caught my attention because as an email marketing agency, we are always focused on trying to figure out what the new wine generation wants. What do they want to hear? And, you know, there are a lot of traditional practices in the world of wine and traditional customers out there, and a lot of marketing that's been done a certain way. So whenever I see new wine generation, I get very excited. And this article did not disappoint, so much so that immediately after reading it, I reached out to our guest and asked him right up front, would you come on the podcast? And he was gracious enough to say yes. So we've coordinated things, and here he is today. So, with that said, I thought it'd be a good idea to just dive into this world of marketing for this new wine generation. As it's important. Listen, things are changing. The world is changing. We want to focus on a new generation of customer. So without any further ado, please welcome Nathan Westfall to the E-commerce Revolution podcast. Nathan, it is wonderful to have you here today.
It is wonderful to be here today. Thank you, Ramin.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I say you were very quick to respond on LinkedIn. Very gracious. Not everybody responds right away. Sometimes I guess maybe people feel that they're getting prospected on LinkedIn, which they may very well be. But in this case, it was a genuine, wonderful job on the content. And then come to find out, you write a lot of content. It's not just this one article. There's a lot of content out there in the wine world and some really catchy titles, but, backed up with some really, really good content out there. So I want to really dive into the article that, caught my attention and really break down that new wine generation. But before we get started, just tell the audience where you're contacting us from or where you're dialing in, as they say.
Yeah, no problem at all. I am out here in beautiful Sonoma County, out in the western portion of the county. We live in Sebatapol. It's beautiful, but don't tell anybody about it because it's still not open on the course yet.
We will make sure not to say anything. And I know that part of the world very, very well. We lived and our agency started in Santa Rosa.
Wow.
So 18 years we were in Sonoma County in the Santa Rosa area. And I used to take that trail from Santa Rosa all the way up to Sebastopol bike trail. Wonderful ride, and stop along the way and just scan out. But yes, let's keep that a little secret, I guess, not tell anybody what a beautiful part of the country and the world, quite frankly, it is. So very nice. And by the way, I noticed in your title on LinkedIn, you have AI in there. Tell me just a little bit before we get into the meat of the topic. We all know what AI is. It's very hot right now, but tell us about your perspective on AI.
AI kind of came out of nowhere. It seemed everybody was looking at one thing and then boom, their AI popped up out of nowhere. But I feel like that is the 100% game changer, next revolution in technology. We're seeing everything flow in right now. It just is so helpful for every facet of day-to-day work and life that we have to be super, super hot on it now to kind of invest early and start to train people and teach people how to use these awesome new tools.
I agree with you. And, as I look at those Win newsletters, I see in every single, I subscribe to every single category they have. And there's definitely AI within the wine, within the wine production side of things popping up. There's definitely, obviously, AI popping up all over the DTC marketing side of things. So I love the fact that you're focused on it and concentrated. And, it's some look at it as, I read somewhere that somebody called it overhyped. That it's overhyped. And there's maybe some truth in just how much it's being discussed, but it is a game changer. It absolutely is. I'm 100% with you on that. We will never be the same because of AI in all parts of our life, right?
Absolutely. And most of the people that say it's overhyped haven't had to sit here and write out marketing emails by themselves
that is
over and
true.
over and over again.
Yes.
It's like,
I think
here's the content creator.
I believe the person who was quoted, and I'm not going to use his name, but I believe he's actually 90 years old. So I'm just leave it at that. And maybe he has people who do that work for him. Not to say that 90-year-olds cannot jump in and use AI, but I believe he's got people. He's got people for that. But his people are probably using it. So, well, let's get into this. I just have to ask, because there's an article that got my attention. Beyond your article, there's another article that got my attention. And I got to ask you, does the wine industry have an old people problem? Which was New York Times bluntly stated this as a title in their article earlier in the year. Does the wine industry have an old people problem, as they called it?
No, I read that article as well. And I don't know if problem is quite the word I would use. There's definitely a heavy lean towards an older generation, because that's where the market sits at the moment. So many of the purchases coming through the wine industry are going to come from those folks kind of in that boomer generation. There's not enough real focus on the younger folks, bringing them in and trying to make wine magical for them as it was magical for their parents.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I know that article got a lot of attention and also received some criticism, from many in the wine industry. And, I agree with you. I think the word problem, maybe is not the right word in there. I look at it as an opportunity, by the way. I'd flip that thing around right there and just say it's an opportunity to go after that new generation that's paying attention. And that new generation is looking for different things, right?
Definitely. You can see, the folks in the beer industry, the folks in the spirits industry, they're doing a great job of snagging those younger folks and bringing them in, even with non-alcoholic beverages. They're trying to go non-alcoholic and bring folks in, just meet them where they want to be. Whereas wine just hasn't quite made the shift yet, but they're just primed for it at this point.
Yeah, that's interesting. When you look at other industries, and I assume, the folks in the wine industry look to these other alcoholic beverage industries to see what's going on in there. And, wondering also then why, it takes longer for one industry to do it versus another industry. But all very fascinating when it comes to finding that audience out there and really building it for the next generation. So let's dive into the article a little bit. And again, the article, adapting incentives for a new wine generation. You state, and I'll quote you here because I think it's important. The landscape of wine consumption is undergoing a dramatic transformation. You pointed to beer, maybe going a little faster. Just talk to me a little bit about this dramatic transformation and how you view it.
Sure. I mean, again, just looking at the demographics of everything, you see the older generation is still the heaviest purchasers. The baby boomers are going to be the heaviest purchasers of wine at the moment, but they are a generation on the precipice of retirement. Everybody is starting to retire in that generation, and that brings that pool of money down from, a huge group, a very large group of folks that had this flexible income, lots of money coming in, to here's a bunch of fixed income now, where wine as a high dollar item isn't going to be something that's going to be in the budget, perhaps. So we're seeing that cohort shrink. We're seeing the cohort of millennials and Gen Z just grow and grow and grow. And the shift is coming where everybody's seeing that, maybe we're not getting as many sales. Maybe we're seeing some of our channels that are a little bit hotter now than they used to be. We didn't used to sell wine online. Nobody used to buy it online, but look at it now. The pandemic just shot it up out of nowhere. And now we're seeing this consistent coming back from a younger generation of people. Like, I want to buy wine online. I want to be able to do things from the comfort of my own home. Yeah.
Yeah. That research portion of it, that's my world. If I'm in a store, and there's only so much you're going to see, on a label. There's only so much, and especially if you can't get somebody to help you, you've got your phone in your back pocket. You pull it out, scan the label. You can see what, read more about it, get the notes on it, other people's opinions out there, and a lot of that shift, that maybe that dramatic transformation, is focusing on those channels that find, that the new generation is looking for, but bringing out the products too. And yeah, I agree with, there's a lot of movement towards health, right? Healthier, a lot of, reports, gone are the days of that 60 Minutes article, that 60 Minutes episode that I remember back in 1991, where they were interviewing the, I guess he was a doctor maybe in France, and talking about how, the properties in wine are, life changing. Oh, everybody jumped out and started drinking wine like crazy, so
it's such a huge effect on the industry too. You saw this wine consumption blew up after that, and it just has that kind of ebbed and flowed. Even recently, I saw another article that came out where people were saying, "Oh yeah, maybe just one glass a day. It's got antioxidants and it's great."
Yes. I did see that too. And, somebody also pointed out you have to factor in enjoyment in there somewhere in this, in your life. If you abstain from everything that somebody reports as unhealthy, and especially they were speaking to, the younger audience out there, do you have much of a life then? Are you really enjoying yourself? So, moderation, important. Look at, do you enjoy hanging around, and having a sip with your friends and talking in there? So I love that. Well, let's dive into another, element, and it's actually in the title of your article, the world of incentives, which as a marketer, I love incentives, and you pointed to Freakonomics, one of my favorite books out there. And it's such a good book. And it's, stood the test of time, if you will. And in there, you quoted the book: "The incentives are the cornerstone of modern life, and understanding them is the key to solving just about any riddle." So with that said, let's dive into that a little more, into incentives and how the wine industry in general has approached them in the past, and maybe how smart, innovative wineries are looking at it now. Just get your perspective on this.
Sure. Freakonomics, to begin with, has stood the test of time. It sits on my desk every single day and referencing it. So always pulling that one out. Incentives, though. You've seen the world of wine. When it initially started, you saw people like, "Oh, we're going to make a wine club, and we're going to incentivize people with, here's wines that you can't have. You can't get these wines at the grocery store, and that's your incentive to join the club. We're going to send them to you twice a year, 4 times a year, whatever it is we decide on. And it's going to be this access. That's your incentive." But as we've seen everything progress through time, that's not as much of a driver anymore of new business. Like, yeah, there is still somewhat of a, "Oh, I can't have that, so I want it." But with the price of wine the way that it is, like, everything's been shooting up, adapting incentives to more hit at all groupings, like more than just the people that can afford the high dollar bottle, maybe comping shipping or giving 20% off on a bottle to help people afford to enjoy this luxury, kind of bring everybody out onto a level playing field. And I mean, that's just the financial incentive portion. Other incentives have been even more effective that we've seen, bringing people in. You come into the winery, and if you're a member, we have a photographer that's going to be here today, and he's going to be able to take your picture in the vineyard so you can put it on your Instagram and share with everybody. All we ask you to do is you tag us.
Wow. So it doesn't have to be just about the wine. It doesn't have to be about the wine. The experience maybe also is, as you're saying, very important.
I feel like that's what sells more than anything. People are looking these days for an experiential, I want to go to wine country. I want to have that experience. I want to take photos. I want to share with my friends. I want to share on Instagram. I want to share on, Twitter or Threads now. People want to share on Threads.
Yeah. I see. It's interesting. I don't want to be locked out of, I don't want to walk into a winery and feel, it's sort of like walking into Tiffany's. And I know that model works, and, they've got it, dialed in, but I don't, as a consumer, and, maybe I don't fit exactly into the young generation, but I, try to pretend like I am sometimes still, that I don't want to, that's not FOMO for me. That's actually off-putting. When I have to look and say, oh, you can't have that. That's really over here. And sorry, that's not going to work out.
And I've seen that throughout the wine industry fairly frequently. And I continue to tell people, like, well, how is that going to drive me to want to come back? Like, I feel like you're keeping me at arm's length. So why would I ever want to come back and try to do this again? Like, I don't need access to that. There's people over there that are going to take my picture in the vineyards and give that to me absolutely for free as a member. I'll take that.
That's a great idea. And I know photography is in your world too. So, but that's a beautiful idea. No, I love, you use the word experience. And that is, I believe, I feel that is, what it is all about. You come to wine country, right? To not just to taste the wine, but to, survey it all, try it all, the food, the pairings, the restaurants that, are associated, or, that the winery tells you, yes, we have those wines at that restaurant. You should go, try their food. It's delicious, and pair it up in there. Do you think there's going to come a time, again, we're here talking about this new generation, is there going to come a time where, the old guard out there, that run wineries are really going to wake up and say, you know what, we need to stop that practice, and we really need to focus on these things or will there always be an element of that, high end, you can't really have it, but you can, try to attain, get yourself there somehow?
I don't feel like that'll ever go away in some respect. There's always going to be those select few where, they can't get them bottles. I'm never going to be able to afford a bottle of Screaming Eagle. It's just not going to happen for me. I know that about myself, and I've written that off in my life. So I'm like, if I don't have to have a bottle of Screaming Eagle, that's okay. It's going to be there forever. Maybe somebody gives me one day, but you'll see it shrink. I think it'll shrink down to where, there's just those select few that are known for doing something like that, where everyone else is kind of forced to adapt with the times and move forward. Maybe we shouldn't gate this. Maybe we should open this up to people, because everybody's money spends exactly the same.
Yeah. And I guess, you could look at that and say many of them they've, added additional brands under the umbrella, brands that, are, creating wine that's, less expensive, where you can find it more readily. But, while I say I don't love it, I get how it works. I understand it. I walk by Gucci or Louis Vuitton, and, I look inside and say, wow, oh, that's amazing. But the minute you walk in, security's watching every move, and, making sure you're not walking out with the goods unless you've put your credit card down. So it's definitely a very interesting element in there. But I know that at the top, the innovative marketers, the innovative wineries out there are very focused on what you are addressing here in the article. So I hope there's more movement in that direction.
Fingers crossed. As we progress into the technology state where everybody starts to be a little bit more technologically savvy, I think we'll see more and more.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we as we talk to brands, we see so much of that now shifting, and they're very intrigued and very interested in there. So I love that. If they need to keep that other element, of incentive in there, that's fine, but just keep opening it up to everybody out there who can have the opportunity to try their wines and see how great they are. See how amazing they are. Talk to me a little bit about sustainability, because it's something you covered in the article. And, how does it play a role in, connecting with the young wine generation? I have some ideas in my head, but I'd love to hear your kind of drill down on this topic a little bit more.
I know as a millennial, I've been preached to my entire life that, we need to protect the environment. We need to do what we can to give back, to recycle, to, go out and volunteer in parks and whatnot. And that's been instilled in me since I was very, very young. So when I see a brand come up and say, we are 100% sustainable, or we're using sustainable packaging to make sure that our impact on the environment is even less, that drives me to want to go support those brands. Like, that's where I want to spend my dollar. I don't want to give my dollar to somebody that is actively polluting, or is, practicing something that is contrary to what I've been told my entire life. So
Right.
having sustainability as a cornerstone in your business and as a cornerstone of your marketing strategy
Hmm.
always pays off in spades for a younger generation of people that really want to support what they grew up with.
No, I love it. So in some ways, I mean, it becomes an incentive, incentive offer. This is how our winery operates. These are the initiatives we have under, sustainability, and maybe there's some level of, donation for everything you purchase, or giving back to a cause that, helps this world of sustainability and our environment. Do you feel that needs to come more into play?
Absolutely. I think it should be
Yeah.
at the forefront of everybody's messaging. How sustainable are you? What are you doing to protect the environment? We're ripe for it in the wine industry, pardon the pun, but it's something that people just don't spend enough time focusing on. They want to focus on tasting notes and telling you that this wine tastes like old leather. Like, tell me that this wine was farmed in a sustainable way, that we didn't use pesticides, or
Yes.
had some sort of sustainable trellising practice, or
Right.
I could care less if it tastes like
Yeah, it is, and I'm very interested in, clean, the category of clean. And, I look as much as possible to, organic, farming practices, production that is clean. Call it the old world, really, the old world of winemaking, because that's what it was, and still is. Those who continue to work in that method, you know, that's not a new thing. That's an old thing brought back.
Mm-hmm.
So, those who market it that way, at least to me, I'm all on board. And when I see that, how they treat their farm, how they treat, the vineyards, how, those elements that they do. And most importantly, that what they're giving me, is clean. We're not, as you said, pesticide, as much as we can get away from pet. We're already apparently shouldn't be putting too much of this in our body. But if we're going to, and we're going to sit down and enjoy it, which I like to do, then at least let's put something that, has a clean element to it. And I know so many wineries in the Sonoma side, Napa, they practice this way, but you got to market. You got to tell people that you're doing it. Otherwise, I think in this day and age, people don't know that it's happening, because there's so much cheap wine out there, right? So much wine that's not produced in that manner. It's almost taken over the market.
Absolutely.
What do you look for when when you're out there as a consumer? And I know you probably know a lot of wineries and you have your favorite ones, but if you're in the bottle barns of the world out there, what are you looking for on the label? Are you looking, what words pop out that are related to sustainability?
For me, that's a tough one. I don't make it to Bottle Barn nearly as often as I should. I'm not going to lie. But when I am there searching for a new bottle of wine, I do look for, organic, sustainable, anything in there that's going to let me know that their production practices were not, just the stock standard. Yep, we're just making wine here.
Yeah.
If it says mechanically harvested, and no, thank you. I know a lot of people do it. I know it's a thing that is fairly common in the industry, and nobody puts it on their label as often as you'd think. But anything like that, hard no. I want to see something that tells me that your product not only is going to be good for me, good to put into my body, but is going to, my dollar is going to fund your continued sustainability and your continued goal of, reaching 100% sustainability, or 100%, what's the word I'm looking for? They're going to have, net zero carbon impact over the course of the next 10 years. Things like that are really, really big drivers for, me spending my dollar at a wine shop.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you see a lot more of that. And it's funny, I didn't look for that, maybe 10 years ago. I wasn't paying attention to that. It was around me because, it's there. But once you open your eyes to, these words, these practices, this way, you definitely, you notice that there's a lot to offer. So you don't have to buy the mass produced. You can focus, and it doesn't have to be expensive either. That's the funny thing about this. Most people think it's very expensive to go. It doesn't have to be. And again, it's back to, this is the way wine was made. you know?
Totally.
And if you
And
go to Europe, that's a big thing in Europe, right?
yeah, you still see it to this day. And
Yeah,
I think it's one of the big drivers of why natural wine has had such this
sure.
renaissance in the past couple years. We went from no natural wine shops in Sebastopol to two in the course of 1 year. And
Wow.
they're absolutely thriving in town because
Mm.
that's what people see. They walk in like natural wine. That's going to be good for me. That's going to be good for my body. And that's going to be something that's worth my dollar to spend.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, that is a great topic. And then let's move into community, because you also spoke about community, and just have you elaborate a little bit more. First of all, what do you mean by community? It can be many things. Let's get into community as it relates to a winery, and then I'll have a few follow-up questions around that.
Community at a winery, I mean, there's going to be the local folks that are going to come and go fairly frequently. I'm a
Hmm.
member at a couple different wineries and be a member living locally and show up. It's just as a member of a wine club, you can show up and you can know the people that are serving you.
Mm.
You can know the people that are typically there as well, and start to build that shared community feel of like, we all love this one thing and we want to come together and celebrate it in our own way. And I
Hmm.
think that's something that is, again, sorely missed in a lot of wineries today. You're a member and you're in a box. You're just a
Right.
member in a box. You show up, they give you the white glove treatment, and you sit off at a table by yourself. But
Mm.
there's really something to be said for that communal experience. Like, wine is something that should be enjoyed with other people. That's the
Right.
beauty of it. Sitting
Right.
around a table, enjoying a good bottle of wine, sharing a lovely conversation.
Yeah.
So that aspect of community building is just
So
vitally important.
So I think what I'm gathering from there is that there is that old way where everybody knows your name, not to steal from the Cheers, tagline, but everybody knows your name, and it's a very localized approach. But there's got to be a new way that yes, there's new technology that plays into it as well. Can you, looking at community and, understanding that there's a new audience, the new wine generation out there that maybe even are using a mobile phone, and, that's got elements of community into it. How are wineries, and maybe there's some examples out there that you can point to where they're trying to capture that old way where everybody knows your name, but they're also trying to bring in this new way where they can scale it up a little bit more, a little faster, I would say. Thoughts on that?
even even something as simple as a newsletter or just a blog article that you can send out to your member base and the people that
Mhm.
have visited your winery to make you feel like you're part of the story. I've seen several wineries do that thus far to varying degrees of success. A lot of times they'll send one out and then it'll take a couple months and they won't post anything. And then maybe they'll send one more out. Oh, people liked that last time. But that consistency in sharing the story of the winery makes you feel like you're part of the community. You're growing with the winery. You're thriving with the winery. Like, oh, I wonder what's happening at X winery in Sonoma County this month. Is the rain affecting how things are
Mm.
happening?
Right.
Are there fires? What's going on? I want to be a part. I want to join in and experience the story of the winery that I love from wherever I am in the world. We have members from as far flung, New York, East Coast, up in Maine and Florida. I've seen just be very, very dedicated to that newsletter coming out month after month. Like, that's how we keep up with our people. That's how
Right.
we visit them when we come out to Sonoma County for our once a year visit. And when we're not there, we want to still be part of that story day in and day out. And I think that's where the real innovations come.
Yeah, I love that. And obviously you're speaking to something that we are passionate about email marketing. You mentioned newsletters, getting that conversation going, getting that information out there. And we do see a lot, as prospects that come to us saying, we're not doing enough of this. We want to do more. We want to get better at this. And that's a very easy way to start, building your community, but communicating. Your community wants to hear from you. Really didn't, right? I mean, they're coming to you because they want to hear from you. They love your product. Speak to them regularly. You'll foster that relationship more and more every single day. So no, I love that, you speak to that. And, I had a chance to have a conversation with a winery a couple months back in New York. In the Long Island area, and I'm always fascinated to find out that all these there's wine being produced in every state, but you see these pockets, and they're very, as a whole, and Sonoma has this, and Napa has this, and here in Texas, but they were very focused, and they not only send out information as individual wineries, but they send it out collectively too. They have somebody who sends out about the region. Come and visit the region, see all these wineries. We've got a big event going on where all the wineries are participating. I thought that's really, really community focused. I loved that. Harder to do, I guess, as your wine region grows dramatically. You have thousands and thousands of wineries. It becomes a lot harder to do that. So no, I love that concept. To me, if I can go to a winery and just sit down and chat with the winemaker, maybe he comes out, and learn the practices and what they're doing. That's a beautiful day, and then be able to sip and just learn. It is educational.
Isn't that a magical experience too when the winemaker comes out? I feel like it's so underutilized. It doesn't take much for the winemaker. Just show up, wave, say hi.
I love it. I love it. I read that Sebastopol and where you are, they're either filing for or trying to get registered as an appellation. Is that correct? Did I read that?
Yeah,
somewhere?
Absolutely. That is going on recently. There's several appellations out in Western Sonoma County and the West County that have kind of grown a little bit too big, and some of the even more localized microclimates up here in Sonoma County can be classified in their own way. So it's exciting to see new appellations coming out. They just approved the new appellation out in Lake County as well.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. That's I find that to be a very interesting concept, as, just popping up. It's like, here comes another community, by the way, to speak to that concept. And as Sebastopol, starts, moving in that direction, and wineries popping up more and more, here comes a new community of wineries. Love that concept. Really good. Well, these are, again, if anybody hasn't read this article, go read it. You'll get inspired. I got inspired. Those of you who are making wine, maybe a smaller winery that's, really trying to look for that new generation out there of wine drinkers, go and read Nathan's article. And I even love the Moneyball article. Great article, great title. I think it's very important to understand how that works as well, how the world of analytics and understanding, kind of like the financial, all those elements that matter, in your business. But I want to ask you a question. We've covered a lot about wine here today, but I always like to ask this one question. If you had the opportunity to stand up in front of maybe a wine marketing class, they bring you in as a special speaker, and you've got a room filled with, new winery, new wine owners, new winemakers, but also maybe those who want to learn how to do things differently. What advice would you give them in terms of going after this market right now? Like what, tangible things they could walk away with right now?
It's two-pronged. Don't be afraid to be bold. And if you are going to be bold, be consistent about it. Just continually hit on that same thing. If sustainability is the thing that you want to hit on consistently, that's your bold statement. Make sure that you're saying that as often and as loudly as possible so people can start to connect the two things. I love this winery. They market sustainably. Okay, then you're connected. You're the sustainable winery then. And that is going to do nothing but increase your market share, increase your buzz, increase what people think of you. That ability to be bold is the hardest thing that I think a lot of wineries are dealing with. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. Trying to sit here and continue the same style, the old way, as you said. If you're not afraid to be bold, you can go out there and maybe throw something that might sound a little ridiculous at the time out. People will respond.
I love that. I love that. Well, there you have it. If this is the class, your instructor has shown you the way. So take note and start putting some things in action. And I think they were perfect. Well said. Well said. Well, Nathan, I really appreciate you coming on. As I said at the top, I'm say it again here at the bottom, coming on the E-commerce Revolution podcast, sharing your thoughts, keep writing great content out there. And take a minute and just tell everybody where we can find you, where we can read your ongoing content. And we'll put something up on the screen where people can QR code it.
Sure, absolutely. I write my blog on medium.com,
Mhm.
so please check me out there. I'm also on LinkedIn, consistently posting my Medium articles there, as well as, connecting with other folks in the industry. I run a local technology group for those that are technology professionals in the wine industry on LinkedIn, which is pretty incredible. We're growing it here at the moment. And
Great.
yeah, feel free. Please take time to read the articles. I always appreciate anybody reading them. It just makes my day to hear that it's affecting people's lives and that they're really enjoying them.
Yeah, no, I get that. You're putting something out there. It's always great to get some feedback on the way back. So have at it, everybody. Click that QR code and pop over to Medium and check out content that Nathan's putting out there. So thank you very much. I hope you have a great rest of well, it'll be the weekend. Whenever people watch this, who knows what it's going to be. But thank you for coming on. We'll definitely stay in touch with you and continue to follow you as well. So thank you. All right.
Thanks for having me.
That brings us to the end of another episode of the E-commerce Revolution podcast. Thank you very much. This was a great episode. I was very excited to kind of learn about how all this was going to pan out and what this looked like out there. And I'm sure those of you who are interested in finding that that new wine generation out there, this hopefully brought some light to what's out there. Definitely read Nathan's articles. If you're a winery that needs help executing on your email marketing, and Nathan mentioned, making sure you're sending out content, make sure you reach out to us. Go to skewagency.com/wine or click the QR code on the screen where you can access one of our latest webinars on the Fab 5 email marketing automation flows that every winery should put in place. Very good webinar, not to, pat ourselves on the back, but put a lot of effort into that content out there and a lot of education that comes with it. So thank you very much, everybody. Until next time, see ya.